To another episode of the Moving Forward podcast, an NBA podcast hosted by me, Jacob Lothamer. Today, I am joined by longtime friend, person I grew up playing basketball with, Sean Samples. I respect his NBA opinions quite deeply. I think he's a very knowledgeable man of the game and also a fellow Pistons fan. So it's nice to have somebody on here who also was very excited on Tuesday night when the Pistons won the draft lottery. Sean, what was going through your head when you saw that the Pistons actually made the top four, and then as it slowly dwindled down, that they miraculously got the number one pick over big market teams instead of the Rockets in Houston or Toronto getting it?
Well, first off, Jacob, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be on this podcast. And yes, that was the single greatest Detroit sports moment of my entire life so far, I have to say. It's been a very bleak history for me in terms of Detroit sports and my whole entire life, it seems like. So, yes, as it was dwindling it down, I was actually hanging out with our mutual friend Adam, and we were just sitting in the car. We couldn't really believe it was going on. And as soon as they got the top four, I was pretty much text. I was like, okay, we got Suggs. We can get possibly Jalen Green, Mobley. I'm fine with that. But as it kept going down, I just honestly couldn't believe it. I really thought, I was like, okay, once it hit to the Rocket, once it hit to us and the Rockets, I was like, all right, we're getting two. It's going to go chalk. But man, as soon as it hit us, the number one, it was probably the most excitement I've felt in a very long time.
Yeah, I know. I felt almost the exact same way. I think the thing that's like, this is like obviously the biggest thing in like Detroit sports history that's even gotten me like close to excited for this upcoming season. Like, obviously, when basketball is gone for a long time over the summer, you're excited for any type of basketball to be on, but usually you
Right.
want to watch like the competent teams play. But
Mm-hmm.
now, like looking at this starting lineup possibly for next year with adding Cade, moving a young Isaiah Stewart into the starting lineup, like
Mm-hmm.
obviously there'll be growing pains with how young this lineup is, but I just think it's like it just feels like promising. It almost feels like the way the Atlanta Hawks looked last year, not this year.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And yeah, any bad team in NBA right now should really just be studying what Atlanta's doing, just how they built their team, young rookies through the draft, and then once they got those prominent rookies, which Detroit finally has, they built around someone like Trae Young, and they got marquee free agents like Bohan to come actually. So I think Detroit's following like the exact path a lower market team has to follow, become somewhat relevant again. And yeah, this is the first time in I think 13 years the Pistons organization has any sort of rookie like that. So it just you can't really like put into words how important this is for the city and the organization itself.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to say it too soon, but it almost has like feelings of like the Clippers before they got Paul George and Kawhi, obviously, or the Nets when they went on those runs when they like squeaked in as like a sixth or a seventh seed and they showed that they're like a good young team with a lot of cap space. I feel like that's exactly what the Pistons are. Maybe they're not that next year, maybe it's 2 years, but I feel like it's coming. Like at least I finally feel like there's a
Yeah.
player who's a superstar who's in Detroit, except for the 1 year that
Yeah.
Blake Griffin was good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we just don't have anything like that. And like the Blake Griffin thing was super exciting. And think about that season. We only made it to A seed. We got swept immediately. So
Hmm.
that was like the highest end of that excitement. But I really think, like you look at a team like Charlotte last year, they just got LaMelo. Before that, what was Charlotte? Just probably the same realm as Detroit. Just very low interest in the team, not really heading any specific direction. But as soon as they got a player like LaMelo, you saw them all over the internet, and other players on the team like Miles Bridges got more shine. It seemed like so. Hopefully, Cade Cunningham can have that spotlight put on Detroit and on our other good, promising young players because I don't know. I don't think Sadiq Bey's year is getting the shine that it really deserves because he had an all-time 3-point season for a rookie, and I barely hear him talked about as any in any sort of prominence. So
I 100% agree. We'll move past this kind of talk in a second, but we'll wrap it up with the Sadiq talk. He was obviously a
mm-hmm.
first team All NBA rookie this year. But when you hear
Mm-hmm.
rookies, especially like people like us who like to listen to the bigger podcasts like the Part of My Takes or the NBA show by The Ringer or the Bill Simmons show, the three
Mm-hmm.
players, they only talk about four of the rookies. They talk about Halliburton, Ball, Edwards, and then occasionally Wiseman. And but Sadiq
Mm-hmm.
Bey was better than Halliburton this year. The only players that he
Right.
wasn't better than was Anthony Edwards, who I think will be probably an all-star, and LaMelo Ball, who will probably be an all-star.
Right. Yeah, completely agree. You never hear his name brought up. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what a guy like Cade can bring to Detroit. And man, I just hope they make the right decision.
So good segue into my first question for you is would you be disappointed if the Pistons did anything other than draft Cade Cunningham number one? Obviously, a lot of people have him ranked number one, but Troy Weaver, GM of the Pistons, said he is open to
Mhm.
anything, trading down or trading the pick. What would it take for you to not take Cade Cunningham number one overall?
I mean, obviously that's just a nightmare situation for me, but it has to be a king's ransom. It has to be. I had to say like two prominent starters and a first round pick, two including this year's first round pick and maybe a future first. Like it has to be one of the biggest gets in the draft day trade that we've almost ever seen because I think that's the type of player Cade Cunningham is. Like we're missing out on a LeBron. I don't know if LeBron level is the right word, but someone of that caliber, like multiple time All Star. But as you can see, there's a lot of buzz around guys like Jalen Green and Evan Mobley being that type of same player. So I don't know. I still think Cade's the pick, but like you said, there's a ton of buzz, including the Pistons beat writer James Edwards. He had a lot to talk about in his podcast about that, saying, man, he doesn't know if the Pistons will do it. He said it was 60-40 that they would draft Cade Cunningham. So
I
there's a lot
don't
of speculation around it.
I don't know if it's that high for the fact of trading it. I just feel
Mm,
like you said, we've already talked about Charlotte a little bit. Like I
right.
feel like Charlotte is a very, very similar situation where they had a decent rookie in Miles Bridges. They had a decent young player also in PJ Washington. They had a couple of young players like Devonte Graham, and you don't hear those names very much. But as soon as LaMelo Ball comes in, then these
Yep.
players start to elevate, and then now they're getting national TV games. I can't tell you. I don't think Detroit had. I think they had one national TV game. I think it's technically in the NBA rules that every team has to have
Yeah.
a nationally televised game. So I think Detroit had one last season. So could you imagine if we had Cade, the spotlight that would be on this Pistons team? Like you'll see Jeremy. I just think this two pronged attack of two guards that can handle the ball and score the ball at the same time is the way it should be going, who could also play off
Hmm.
ball. Because if you look at like McCollum and Lillard, that's kind of how it is. Like one goes out, one plays point guard, the other one's out, they go to shooting guard. And it's not like sit there and stare, dribble, 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 like a Harden thing. It's like nice off ball movement. And I just feel like that's what Cade gives to the Pistons. So I just feel like he's the biggest name in this draft. He has the most superstar potential in this draft, and he'd bring the most eyes and attention to Detroit. So I feel like that is the best place to go with this pick by far.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's just the way the NBA is heading to. You need multiple ball handlers. Like you can see right now, Hawks, but they have Bogdanovich comes in when Trey Young's out. He handles the ball, he sets up the offense, and then obviously he can still play off of Trey. And I feel like that's the type of guy Cade Cunningham can be. You can just plug him in anywhere in the lineup, and he's going to make an impact somewhere. So yeah, it's going to take a lot for me to say we need to trade down. So yeah, I just think Cade's a far and away pick right here.
I 100% agree. Like, what do you hear every single time? Like, there's like a Lakers team or the Mavericks, for example, is we need another shot creator and ball handler. And if you take a guy like Cade, he is both those things. Like he
Right.
creates his own shot and he gets other people open. A player like Jalen Green, he can create his own shot, but is he getting other people open? I don't think he does that as much. He's more of like a pure scorer. And
Yeah.
Mobley's not going to do that for you. So I feel like Cade Cunningham, it's a shot creator, a ball handler, a playmaker. I feel like that's like your best mold. He's the most NBA ready player in this draft, I think, probably. So I think it has to be him. And I don't think there's any question about it really.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the Pistons already have a Jalen Green esque player in Jeremy Grant. Like if we drafted Jalen Green, they pretty much do the same thing. Jeremy Grant's our scorer. He's our go-to player in the crunch time. He's going to take all the shots. He's going to get majority of the shots on the team. So I don't think we need another guy like that. We need a guy like Cade that's going to be the second ball handler off of Killian. And yeah, I think Mobley would make the most sense if you're going to trade down. He can play off of Isaiah Stewart and he can get that added rim protection and he can develop a little bit. And he's going to have his biggest weakness is rebounding, and Isaiah Stewart's been proven to be a really good NBA rebounder. So if we were to trade down, I'd say Mobley is the pick. But man, I just think the gap between Cunningham and Mobley is pretty wide.
I 100% agree. So, like you talked about earlier, you have your four main guys who are going to be the first four picks. We don't know the order yet. Obviously, in my personal opinion, probably think it's going to go Cade, Mobley, Green, then Suggs. You would say that's the top four in any particular order. What's one guy outside that top four that you think could make the biggest impact on a team next season?
Looking at the list and looking at the teams that are in the lottery that could actually be good next year, Golden State immediately jumps out at me. Obviously with Steph and then Clay returning next year, Draymond. I think they really need some bench help. Seeing from the team this year, you could totally see there's the superstars and Steph and Draymond, and there's just a large drop off where Golden State was looking like a G League team at some point in the season. So I think they'd really benefit from someone like Davion Mitchell, proven winner. He had an outstanding performance in the NCAA tournament. And he just looked like I watched a lot of Baylor games. He looks just far and away better than most college talent you see. And it was very obvious. Like his first step is insane. His finishing around the rim, he has a jump shot. And it seems a little cliche to say, but he does play like someone like Mitchell from Utah. I'm blanking on his name for some reason, but yeah, he plays exactly like him. I mean, I feel like if Golden State got someone like him off the bench and they have Steph and Clay, like he would be a huge piece for that team in a West that's kind of uncertain right now. So yeah, I think Davion Mitchell would make the most impact next
I
year.
I agree. I know Jordan Poole usually comes off the bench and he's like their main ball handler. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Poole is really good at creating his own shot and getting open and then maybe kicking it. But I feel like if you had a guy like Mitchell on your team, he would be more of a facilitator who can hit an open shot for you. Because that's always been a problem with that Golden State team occasionally when there is issues, is their bench depth. Because we really
Mm-hmm.
saw it this year, especially with no Clay. And when they lost Oubre for a certain amount of time, how much they had to rely on other pieces. So I 100% agree on Mitchell. I'll take a different take than you because obviously I don't want to follow in. A team that I'm actually looking at that I think could make a big jump next year is probably the New Orleans Pelicans. I feel like that's a good place to go. The player I'm really eyeing for them, I don't know if he falls out of the top 10, which I know the Pelicans have either the 10th or the 11th pick, is Keon Johnson from Tennessee. I feel like he is a really, really good all around scorer. He's a really good spot up shooter. I feel like he's a really nice complement to both Zion and Ingram. And I feel like he spreads the floor even more for them. They've had inconsistencies at their two. Nikhil Alexander Walker is okay at times, but he has flashes of good and bad. And then Lonzo is not really the overall best shooter. And if you're a playoff team, we really saw it this year and we knew it last year for sure. If you want to be a playoff team, there's no way you can play Eric Bledsoe 30 minutes in a game. And that's what the Pelicans did this year. So I feel like they need an actual two, not a point guard trying to play the two, especially on that team.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And I can actually see someone, I mean, going back to Davion Mitchell, I think he would actually fit well with the Pelicans as well. I'm looking at a couple mock drafts right now, and a lot of them do have Davion going to the Pelicans because he didn't would make a lot of sense. But yeah, Keon Johnson's the real deal. I think the Pelicans can pretty much get any other depth they can get at this point because there's a good chance for losing Lonzo to free agency. And then with the coaching change, yeah, I think they can take the pieces they have right now, and if they added a scorer like Keon, then yeah, I can see them making a big jump and having him have a big impact. So yeah, that's a good point.
Speaking of a coach that I would have liked to see take the Pelicans job and was honestly confused that he wasn't more in the running for that one compared to the job he actually took is Rick Carlisle. He seemed to want to move on from the Mavericks organization, even though out the door he's been saying a lot of really nice things. He's saying how well it is to coach Luka Doncic and how like he's such an unselfish player, but he wanted out and he decided to take the Pacers job. I don't know if it was the first one that was offered to him or he wasn't in the coaching search for the other jobs, but he's been a really, really good coach for a long time. I'm just confused why he kind of landed at the Pacers. I feel like they have a lot of really good talent, but I feel like that might be a sinking ship. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I was just thinking about this a little bit before we got on. You told me about this, but My initial thoughts are Pacers are just, yeah, like you said, a sinking ship. I don't see them making any jump with a coaching change. So I'm kind of confused why a tenured championship coach like Rick Carlisle would want to go to a team like that rather than a young team like the Pelicans, who I think he would have had the most impact on. If he came in, you have young stars who they're probably all hungry to win. You have Zion, Brandon Ingram. That's, I mean, that's a playoff team for sure. And with a guy like Rick Carlisle, he can elevate that team. The Pacers, they have Sabonis, Miles Turner. I don't really see that team getting much better with coaching changing. So,
I feel the same way. I felt like I liked the Brogdon signing 2 years ago, but as I was watching them more and more this year, I feel like it makes less and less sense. Like he's a guy who takes a lot of shots, but isn't the best like shooter. Like it
mhm.
feels like he shoots too much on that team. Obviously, they never had their whole healthy lineup. TJ Warren missed the whole year. They signed Jeremy Lamb. He never really played last year. Karis LeVert was in and out of the lineup. So maybe they look better, but it just feels like they have a lot of scores as individuals, but they don't have a good team thing going on, which is almost the same issue as the Pelicans. But on that team, you have Ingram, who's super young and could be something really great, and then Zion, who's something really young, who we know could be really great. So it just
Yeah.
feels like maybe he took the first thing that came at him. He used to coach there from '03 to '07, so maybe he wanted to go back there for some reason, like he had some attachment to it, but it just feel like he kind of took the first job that was offered to him instead of kind of like weighing the pros and the cons of the different jobs.
Yeah. I guess the Pacers do have a little more talent than I originally thought. But as you can see from the NBA, you need stars at the caliber of Zion, caliber I think Brandon Ingram can get to with the type of skill set he has. I just think the Pacers don't have those guys.
Yeah,
I think Karis LeVert's a piece. I think Sabonis is a piece, but I just think I don't know. I guess like you said, maybe it's some sentiment or something, but I just really think the Pelicans would have been a better landing spot. And let's see if the Bucks lose this series. I think Budenholzer gets fired, and I think the Bucks. We saw a lot of buzz about it, but I think the Bucks would have been a perfect spot for him too. So, yeah, I'm kind of confused about this move.
Yeah, last thing on this, just to kind of wrap it up. Like Sabonis is obviously an all-star, but let me know if I'm ringing home on anything that feels the same to you. Does Sabonis give you big like Kevin Love Timberwolves vibes? Like he's really good by himself on a team that's not that great, but if you put him next to somebody like really good, like a LeBron, he wouldn't be as great as what we think he is.
Yeah, I definitely view him more as a supporting cast star or all star, I can say, rather than a standalone guy that can lead you to a championship. I think that's a perfect comparison because you put Sabonis next to two other superstars, yeah, he's going to be great because he's going to make the right passes, but definitely his stats are going to dip. I think he saw a big stat increase with guys like TJ Warren being out most of the year last year, and the Pacers not really have as much talent. So, yeah, that's a perfect comparison.
Well, the Pacers will have a whole off season to get healthy next season. Wrapping it up for that, let's move on to the game last night, game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Milwaukee Bucks completely choked this one away. It seems like they had it handled through most of the game until basically the fourth quarter. But they mostly lost it in the third. To be honest, they were outscored by 8 in the third quarter. Couldn't really ever separate from the Hawks team. It always felt like to me they were up 6 to 8 points, but they could never get that lead to 15, and that allowed the Hawks to stay in this one, especially behind a 48-point game by Trae Young. I will put my hand up when this draft was going on in 2018 and I saw Trae Young. I thought he was the biggest joke. I didn't think he was going to be good in the NBA. I thought he was going to be a total bust. And I can never say anything bad about Trae Young ever again. This dude is a gamer. He's a hooper. Like if my biggest takeaway from the rest of this like year, if anything, is like Trae Young might be a top 20, top 15 player in the NBA, and he's not to be messed with.
Yeah, he just keeps proving everyone wrong. Like, I was completely agreeing with you. Like, he was drafted over Luka. He was traded for. Right now, in hindsight, before playoffs started, that still looks like a joke of a trade. But Trae Young just keeps proving people wrong, keeps making some of the best performances I've seen in playoff history in a long time. And man, he was just incredible last night. And this game has to go more on his shoulders rather than the Bucks. I would say Trae Young won this game rather than the Bucks losing it because he was just incredible. Like you said, it was a back and forth game. Bucks were up 6 to 8, but Every time they needed a bucket, it seemed like Trae Young made a play. And really the big thing that stood out to me was how well he was utilizing the pick and roll last night. It seems like the Bucks cannot stop that. And even if you like watch the highlights, every single time he makes a good play, it's off that high screen and roll, and he would either get deep into the paint and take his little floater, or he'd kick out to the corner and find one of his shooters. And if the Bucks want to win this series, they got to focus heavily on that because that was very glaring to me last night. I don't know if you saw the same thing or not.
I feel the same way. I feel like, to be honest, I always thought Clint Capella was a little bit overrated in Houston, but now I see why he was so important to what that Houston team did before they went small ball, and I see how important it is now. Clint Capella sets amazing screens. He's super athletic. He's always dunking and finishing around the rim. Like, I feel like Clint Capella is an unsung hero on this team. He had 19 rebounds last night, but with Milwaukee, they never really had to worry about the pick and roll because it was so much isolation against Harden and Durant in the last round. Now head to a team that's all pick and roll and just hitting to corners. Like John Collins had 23. He had a really, really good game. Kevin Herter had 13, less than what he had in game 7, but still a good game. And Bogdanovich is playing on one knee, but yet we still haven't seen them like exploit that matchup for the Bucks yet. Obviously, Holiday had 33 points, but he was only guarding Holiday half the time. The other person he was guarding was Chris Middleton, who had only 15 on 6 of 23 shooting. I feel like if you look at the Bucks, like the reason they lost this game is like Chris Middleton and not being able to stop Trae Young. If I had to sum it up, obviously there's more, but I feel like those two
Yeah.
things were big glaring points.
Yeah, and that's why I'm gonna kind of make a serious prediction. That's why I'm still gonna take the Bucks in the series. Honestly, I think that's a fluke Chris Middleton game. I mean, you can see from last series he was huge against the Nets, had huge shots, shot well, and this was just a bad game for him. He could not make a shot, and I really think Drew Holiday, that was a big coming out party for him last night. That was big. He did not score very well last series. He seemed a little timid in spots, but you could see yesterday he was really exploiting that point guard matchup with him. Trae Young cannot guard him. And I know Trae wasn't on the whole game, but it seems like he got that confidence initially when Trae was guarding him. And once he got that confidence, he was just cooking anyone in front of him. And I think Drew Holiday is going to be the key to this series. He needs to play. Obviously not. That was a terrific game. He can't play that level every single game, but he needs to be close to that the rest of the series if the Bucks want to make that kind of this type of jump to the NBA Finals. But yeah, it's all about guarding Trae Young. That's what they got to focus on. They got to scheme something up the next couple of games because, wow, that was just a total domination by one of the smallest guys on the floor. And I'm just a huge fan of Trae.
Yeah, I'm usually kind of a hater on guys who exploit fouls and everything, and sometimes Trey does that. I didn't really notice it last night. I feel like Trey was really, really good. Obviously, he shot 12 free throws, so he shot a lot of free throws, but I feel like those were warranted free throws over what he usually gets with some like cheapy fouls. Also, he probably should have had basically 50. There was a stretch in that third quarter, I don't know if you remember it, where he had like crossover move after crossover move where he was just hitting from the top of the key or a little bit off of the top of the key, where his foot was on the line every single time. And it just felt like the longest 2-pointer I've ever seen. So he probably should have had 50. But my last question to you about this game is I think the Bucks found out two things last night. I think Bobby Portis really works off the bench against this Hawks team. Harley played against the Nets. I feel like he had 11 last night. He had 8 rebounds. He played really, really well. The second thing is, why are you playing Pat Connaughton 29 minutes of the game?
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
Dante DiVincenzo is out. Both these teams have injuries, forcing them to play worse players. Hunter is out. Reddish is out for them. Um, Dante DiVincenzo is out for the Bucks. But playing, okay, you played Jeff Teague 6 minutes. He got you 0 points off the bench. You played Pat Connaughton 29 minutes, 0 for 4 from 3. He had 4 points. Those 2 of the points were from free throws and took an airball 3 to end the game. Your biggest shot of the game was a shot by Pat Connaughton. And then you played Brent Forbes, who's supposed to be your hot shooter, who only took 3 3-point shots compared to Connaughton, not known for threes, took 4. He only got you 5. He played 12 minutes. Connaughton played 29 minutes for the Bucks last night.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up too. I cannot believe that he was the guy on the floor to take that last game time shot. I just couldn't. It's inexcusable. And you kind of see this with Budenholzer. It's kind of a main theme with him over the playoffs. his rotations make no sense. And I think that's one of the glaring issues with his coaching style and why it may hold the Bucks back from making this championship. Like it, Connaughton just doesn't really seem to bring any value to the table. I mean, I know Bryn Forbes is a bad defender, but at least he came in the game, he hit shots yesterday, and that's what they need. They need shot makers. They need to take the pressure off of Giannis because you could see in that fourth quarter they couldn't really go anyone besides Drew Holiday. They can't really go to Giannis because he just gets double teamed and he can't kick it out to anyone reliable. So yeah, that was just a glaring weakness with the Bucks last night, and yeah, they need to shorten up their rotations.
I was about to say I was trying to like look at the minutes here played by the Hawks along with the Bucks. Clint Capella played 38 minutes, so it's not like they ever really went small. If you're playing Brook Lopez only 20 minutes of the game and you're deciding to go smaller and you're playing Giannis at the 5 and you're bringing in Pat Connaughton thinking it's going to give you more shooting and better defense, wouldn't you rather just have Bobby Portis, who was like the fourth leading percentage of three-point shooters in the league this year? You're telling me Bobby Portis can't guard Onyeka Okongwu for 3 minutes if he has to, or Gallinari? Bobby Portis is a pretty versatile 5 who usually used to play 4. I feel like he can stay in front of these slower guys who are just stand and shoot guys.
Yeah, I completely agree. And he didn't really play that much last year, if I remember, against the Nets. So I don't know what's going on with Bobby Portis within that organization. But yeah, he seems like a very perfect piece for this type of series. So I think if there's an adjustment to be made, I'd say definitely play him more. And Jesus, just take Connaughton out of the game. Just stop. The experiment's not working.
Yeah, I feel like the Bucks and the Jazz are in the same exact like wheelhouse where your starting 5 lineup is really, really good. But if you have to go to that eighth, ninth man on the bench, it's horrific. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how they haven't gotten some kind of buyout guy that shores up this rotation. They got PJ Tucker this year and they had one injury. They had one injury. So you're telling me you had 2 good guys off the bench. You're supposed to be, could be the NBA champions this year. You have 7 players deep. That's the same way I feel about the Jazz. That's why the Jazz are out, and I feel like that's why the Bucks could possibly be out this year. Speaking of 2 teams with a ton of depth, Game 3 tonight, Phoenix leads the series 2-0 after one of the craziest buzzer beaters I've ever seen. I didn't know about the rule where you can goaltend on an out of bounds play. Did you? I didn't even know that was a
No,
thing.
no, not at all. I was completely surprised about that. And I think that just speaks to how good of a coach Monty Williams is because he saw that. That seemed like a very well drawn up play. And yeah, that, I could not believe that. I thought for a second, I was like with the Clippers on that one, I was like, that was goaltending. And then on the broadcast, they just kept saying, no, that's the little eyeball right there. And I could not believe it. But man, Ayton, he is just such a good player. And another save, he's saving the Suns from embarrassment too because they're like that I was mentioning earlier with Trae Young, they also passed up on Luka and drafted Ayton first. But Ayton's looking like the perfect playoff center, and he's proven it time and time again. So, what are your thoughts on Ayton?
Ayton, I had this conversation when a couple episodes ago when I was talking about how Gobert has been a 3-time defensive player of the year, but I think that Ayton is a much more valuable player than Rudy Gobert right now. And that's exactly how I feel. I feel like if I had to rank my centers, like Ayton is getting higher and higher. Like who would I rather have at the end of the game? A shot blocker who just stands by the rim or DeAndre Ayton who gives you buckets, who has a low post game, who's also a good defender, and he can at least spread you out to like, he can't hit threes, but he can spread you out to 15 feet, which is something Gobert would never even think of.
Oh yeah, I would take Ayton 10 times out of 10 in a playoff series over Gobert. Gobert's the perfect regular season center. I get what he does with picks. I get what he does with protecting the rim. But as you can see from the Clippers series, you go small against him, you just draw him out, and he
Yeah.
cannot guard on the perimeter. And it's just very glaring. But yeah, Ayton, he has that mid-range jumper. Like you said, he has a little post game, and yeah, he just continues to impress me. And I think he's going to be a big reason why the Suns are going to make to the finals.
Yeah, I am 100% with you. I've been saying it for the last couple of things. I think like the most for sure thing in the playoffs right now, it's kind of a weird thing to say, is that I think the Suns are making the NBA finals, especially because Chris Paul is coming back tonight. He is in the lineup after being held out the first 2 games due to COVID protocol, and still no word on Kawhi Leonard right here on the ESPN app. At 5:30 right now, it says that he is out for tonight's game. So I have to guess he's out. Suns only favored by 1 point, -1. With Paul coming back, I feel like this is a pretty easy Suns -1 play. So I'm definitely going to lose my money, right?
I know it's just such a tempting line. You see the -1, you see the way the Suns are playing. I'm taking the Suns. So we're gonna be losing money together. But I'm very confident in the Suns. Like I don't see them losing this game. I think Paul George is kind of a mental freak, and I think that last game's gonna get in his head. And I don't see anyone else in the Clippers unless Terrence Mann reincarnates himself to be one of the better players in the NBA, like he did against the Jazz. I don't really see them having a player that's going to step up and stop the bleeding. I think that was a very demoralizing game too. And yeah, I'm picking the Suns. I'm riding them.
I
-1, baby. Let's
I
go.
agree. It would be one thing if Kawhi Leonard was coming back and like rejuvenates. You're at home. Like I think this is the second time that they're playing in front of a sold out crowd at Staples Center. Even though I feel like the Suns fans will travel really well to LA. It's not a very far drive, but I just think that the Suns are getting another player to make them better. Now, instead of Cameron Payne giving you that productivity that he usually brings off the bench, he had to do it in the starting lineup, which hurt their bench. Now he can go back to the bench and give you even more production because Chris Paul, he, after being hurt in that Lakers series and being bad, he torched the Nuggets for 4 straight games. I think the entire series he had 5 turnovers in 4 games. It was insane. He was on fire. He's had to sit out 2 games. He said he felt nothing. He said he had no symptoms. He feels good. I think Chris Paul's going to come out and torch. He wants to beat this Clippers team after being there for so long and never being able to make the conference finals with them. He's in the conference finals now, and I think we're about to see the Suns go up 3-0. I think the Kawhi injury is a lot worse than they're letting on. They won't say anything. So I think that if the Suns win this game tonight, it is over. The Phoenix Suns are going to the NBA championship.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. We got multiple factors going into a CP3 game right now too. We got the revenge game against the Clippers. Very vocal about his dislike of the organization. I don't know if there's lingering feelings there, but yeah, you saw Cam Payne had 29 and some 10. I don't even know his assist rating, but yeah, plug Chris Paul into that spot. He's gonna pick them apart. He's a floor general. And it really proved to me I needed to see the Suns win without him, honestly. And the fact that they won those first 2 games proved a lot about this team's mental toughness and their skill. So yeah, plug Chris Paul back in this, and I don't think the Clippers have a chance unless Kawhi makes miraculous comeback. And like you
Yeah,
said, I think it's ACL tear. I just don't. I think they're just holding out hope at this point.
I 100% agree. So the both of us are probably going to take the Suns -1. I just think I don't know how the Suns they did the rebuild perfectly. It took a little longer than you would have wanted, but once they got their old GM out of there, and the first pick that new GM made was with Aiton. After that, they took Cameron Johnson, who's been a huge play. Mikal Bridges has been huge. They've picked a couple players who are iffy. I'm not sure about the Jalen Smith pick last year, but that's left to be determined in the future. But the way that they've crafted this team with a couple of veterans, not too many veterans, a couple of veterans who are still giving you great playoff minutes, like Paul, like Crowder, Saric a little bit. He's on the younger side, but he's been in the league longer than these other guys. Cam Payne, who knows what it's like to be on the downside of things, who just wants to win. I feel like the way James Jones, the finals man, who followed LeBron around for 7 straight years making the finals, is about to make it without him this year. He was the executive of the year. And I will clap my hands for how great this Suns organization has been putting this team back together. And I do like that it's new teams making the finals, and it does help that I hate the Clippers, so I'll be rooting for the Suns for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just kind of inspiring to see like lower market teams do well, like teams that haven't been in relevance in years. Like the Hawks and the Suns were, it seems like they're in the lottery every single year for the past 15 years, along with the Pistons. So throwing it back to the Pistons full circle, I think this is kind of the route you can take to get to the point where these teams are at. And yeah, the Suns did it the complete right way. They hit with Booker, may have been lucky, but obviously they saw something people didn't. And yeah, the way they crafted their team, it's just a perfectly built team. I love Jay Crowder is a mid-level signing, probably the best one out there. They obviously got Chris Paul, Saric. They just have pieces all around it. It's just a really well-constructed team, and James Jones just deserved that award. So yeah, it gives me hope for the future that the Pistons can someday get to this sort of point.
And it also gives me a little bit of hope currently, knowing that the Pistons have moved on from Reggie Jackson, who's been liability on defense. He might be putting up numbers, but he's a liability on defense. Same with Luke Kennard. And what we've learned, especially through this playoffs and maybe last season too, is Marcus Morris will either give you 25 or he will give you six. And that's not worth the $18 million a year that they pay him. So the Detroit Piston Clippers, whatever they are, the old remnants of what that Pistons team was in like 2016, like they can have those players. Like I was kind of sad when that original Luke Kennard trade happened, but after seeing the contract they gave him, I'm glad he's not on the Pistons anymore.
Yeah, definitely not. And yeah, like you said, all the weaknesses are coming out this series for the Clippers. And I think the Clippers are the flip side of what the Suns are. I think they're a really badly constructed team. So you're seeing Monty Williams, a really good coach, just exploit all their weaknesses. And yeah, the games may have been close, but I feel like this series is a lot more far apart than the scores may have led on. And I think the Suns make a statement game three. I think they're going to smoke them tonight. I think they're going to smoke them. I'll say it. That's my official prediction.
All
They
right.
may lose, but I'm saying it.
Well, I took the Suns -1, so you and I will be riding with a Suns big win. Thank you for this episode, Sean. Thank you for coming on, sharing your thoughts on the new hirings, the games last night. Would love to have you on again closer to the draft. Talk about maybe your Michigan players, see where Franz Wagner and Isaiah Livers show up. Just a quick hit on that because obviously I've seen everywhere from Livers being mocked as like a mid 30s player to low 50s. It's the same with Aaron Henry, but where's this love for Franz Wagner coming in to be a lottery pick this year? Do you see it from him moving forward, or do you think like he's being overhyped because how much the NBA loves 3-and-D tall wings?
Wow, I didn't think we get to this point. I can go on for a long time about Franz and our Michigan players, but I do not. I watched every single Michigan game last year. I'll just throw that out there for everyone listening. I love Franz. Great defensive player. Definitely an NBA level defender. And I think he can be an upper echelon NBA defender. Offensively, not at all. His jump shot is not as crisp as the stats may have led on. He's very hesitant with the ball. He doesn't like to shoot. Um, a lot of points in the season, he would get the ball in the lane wide open. You could see that hesitation in him. I don't think he has the confidence yet. And it shows at the end of the game, UCLA, airball after airball, and just offensive performance was abysmal. And that's the big moment that I like to see out of players. Obviously, the NCAA tournament doesn't tell you everything, but I could see that kind of escalating the whole year to that point. So, yeah, I'm not getting the love for him as much, but I mean, I got faith in Franz because I think he's still a terrific player. But yeah, really needs to work on his offensive game and confidence. So I would rather pick Isaiah. I mean, obviously he's not a lottery pick, but second round, I'm hoping the Pistons target him because I think Isaiah has that sort of NBA shooting confidence. So yeah, I don't know about Franz. That's all I'll say. Very undetermined.
Yeah, I felt the same way towards him. I think he's obviously a first round pick just off potential alone with his size and like what he does for a team, what he could do. But I think as low as 10, as I've seen him go, even 7, some to mock draft him to the Warriors, I feel like that is way too high for him when there is proven players out there, like we talked about with Mitchell, that can come in and do stuff for you right away. But that was a quick talk on some other prospects that we know more about. I'm curious to see what that second draft, what the mock drafts will look like moving forward, see what the Pistons finally say if they ever come out and say like, hey, we're taking Cade #1, or if they're going to leave teams on their toes. This isn't like the NFL though, so it's not like if you have your guy, you have your guy. The NFL, in the NBA, there's way less parity than the NFL. Like you never know where an NFL team's going to go. Mostly NBA teams are going to go for the best player available. So yeah, I feel like the Pistons, like we said, just draft Cade, don't do anything stupid, and just don't do something stupid.
I'd say just draft Cade, get that going. We'll start chanting that in the streets.
Yep. Just draft Cade. Well, the draft is in a month from now. So towards then, we'll know the answer. But thank you to everyone for listening to episode 6. This will obviously be up on anywhere you get podcasts, along with the digital or the visual version on YouTube. So go follow that, check that out. But Sean, thank you for coming on, and see ya.